All right, everyone. People are worried, I guess, in Latin America because the pre-trading for the stock market of Brazil looks fairly bleak. It looks like about a fifth of their stock market's set to be wiped out. This is fairly breaking news, actually. And it's not a surprise because what's happened is they got rid of their socialist president, Dilma. Dilma was a corrupt asshole, and protests erupted. It was over this scandal with Petrobras. She was trying to appoint somebody to her cabinet in order to shield them from investigation. She was siphoning money off, gets let go of, gets forced out of office. And so people are like, oh, okay, we got rid of the corrupt asshole, things will get better. So then they get their new presidente in there, Temer, or Temer, might be pronounced. And then he turns out to be a corrupt asshole too. He's doing the same thing, trying to, like, I guess, pay off a witness in a major corruption probe where he's guilty of graft potentially too. So the Brazilians just can't catch a fucking break. It's like, okay, the far left party has been implicated in corruption and major scandal. Now the right-wing party has been implicated in the same thing. Are they ever going to get somebody to lead their country that isn't a total asshat? Like, this is almost worse than what we have to suffer through. We get, like, Bush, and he's a warmongering corporate asshole. We get Obama, he's a warmongering corporate asshole. And finally we get someone who seems sane, at least, with Trump. Although a lot of people don't give him credit for that. They've forgotten how bad the Bush and Obama years, I think, are already, which is slightly sad. Brazil's got it even worse there. Their leaders are just more or less openly flaunting the fact that they're stealing millions of dollars. And this comes, by the way, at a sore time in Latin America, where Brazil is openly engaged with Venezuela, trying to put pressure on them. Now, how can the Brazilian government, with its own top-level corruption probes, and apparent constant graft and corruption at every level, how can Brazil put any significant political weight on Venezuela? And that would be one of the most important nations that would need to do that, to solve the crisis there. And Brazil's totally distracted right now by their own problems, so it ends up falling on Guyana, Peru, Colombia, some of these other states to actually pull the weight when it comes to that. Because, I mean, again, how can Brazil weigh in? If both the left wing and the right wing are totally fucking corrupt, there's a burgeoning movement in Brazil towards libertarianism. And I strongly encourage people there to embrace it. Because your economy could potentially shoot ahead. If you actually gain a true free market with a government that's more limited, that therefore can't engage in some of this corruption, things there may improve. It would become an investment paradise pretty soon. Brazil would be fairly advanced. It would become sort of like a second United States, potentially. And there are people who think that can't happen. Trust me, it can. That would be my advice to the people. Fuck the austerity measures of your so-called conservative or right-wing movement there, because it's clear they're no longer capable of governing any more than Dilma's people are. You've got it actually a little bit easier than the U.S. Here, people persist in the delusion that either the Republicans or the Democrats, this false dichotomy, need to represent this country's interests. And for 150 years, they've used this to their advantage in representing only their own interests. In Brazil, though, because the scandals are so close together, so apparently vicious, perhaps you have a better view of your political situation, realize indeed there are other ideologies and movements that can be embraced, that can work better, something that is more on the true limited government side, as opposed to, oh yeah, we lowered the corporate tax, some cronyist movement, which is basically no different from a left-wing movement other than without the welfare breadcrumbs and some more austerity maybe, something like a Temer's movement. There are other alternatives that are available to the people there. Brazil is another case like Venezuela where it should be a wealthy state. Venezuela has a shit ton of oil. It should be wealthy, instead it's in squalor. Brazil has an enormous amount of extremely productive agricultural land. It has some oil of its own as well. It has a large land area. It has a large population. It has a lot of natural resources related to lumber and some of these special sort of things that aren't found in large numbers in many parts of the world that are in high demand on world markets. It has every advantage. There's no reason why people should still be living in like ghetto shanty towns on the fringes of some of your urban areas. There's no reason why that should have to happen. Development is possible there. Latin America is probably, properly managed, Latin America is sort of the future in many ways. It's all in the Americas. Europe's like old and decrepit. Asia's growing old and decrepit. Africa has never achieved any substantial development other than Libya, and we killed Gaddafi, so that went bye-bye. It'll take another 100 years to recover. Where exactly else in the world is growth and technological progress going to be made? With the entire old world hemorrhaging in every possible way, it falls on the Americas, from Canada on down to Las Malvinas, or the islands down there that the Argentinians won't let go of, and neither will the UK. Essentially, it's the century of the American hemisphere. But we've got to start managing things properly. There was a time long ago when the American hemisphere wanted peace and prosperity, and we're sort of tired of the old world sort of way of doing things. We've gotten away from that. Like the U.S., our politicians are too busy dicking around in Asia right now, and formerly in the Middle East, to care about what happens here. Canada is basically being colonized by the Chinese. Mexico and everything on down has continuous corruption. Constant, utter corruption. It doesn't seem even to matter if it's like socialist corruption at this point or not. Look at Brazil right now. It's not some like far left movement that's being corrupt there right now. It's a supposedly right-wing movement, and they get the same fucking result. Kick all these idiots out of office in your respective countries, and let's reformulate an American future for the next century or two, where the growth is going to happen here. It'll be sustained. There will be more development. We'll have the technology. We'll have the power. And then we could say, like the Middle East, as far as the U.S. goes, fuck the Middle East. Who cares? We don't need to be involved there anymore. We don't need proxy wars because we've got all the wealth here. Who's gonna do anything to us? The Americas, they're all locked down. Cuba is now opened up to the U.S. to some degree. Things there are progressing, albeit slowly. Venezuela is still a holdout. There's no reason for Brazil to have to fall into that same trap. Do you want another half century of suffering there, as other Latin American countries, economically and maybe even militarily speaking, begin eclipsing Brazil because you keep having problems with these parties of yours? No, abandon them. My advice is you are arguably ahead of the United States when it comes to the rise of libertarianism. After a fashion, of course. It's tempered libertarianism. It's more pragmatic. That's a good thing. Gary Johnson's of our own movement aside, it could indeed cause your economy to rise quite quickly. Properly managed, with a population that understands the tenets of liberty, and understands, at the very least, the need to make sure the poor aren't starving in the streets. It's a humanitarian issue. It could be a good thing for your country. Should adopt it in Venezuela, but, good luck getting rid of Maduro without shooting him in the head or something. I keep hoping Maduro will be making a speech and someone's going to hurl a Molotov cocktail at him, and he's going to get hideously scarred, and he'll be like bedridden and in constant pain until he succumbs to some sort of exotic infection. I think it'd be the best thing for their country, really, if that were to happen. But Brazil shouldn't have to deal with that. I mean, a fifth of your stock market gets wiped out in a single day. And there will still be people who ignore it completely. Like half of the political world here won't even talk about what's happening in Brazil. Maybe they'll mention it in passing. Like, you'll turn on the news. Oh, yeah, today, big problem in Brazil. Their stock markets are down because of a corruption probe. And that's all they'll say about it. They won't even bother to analyze it. They certainly won't dedicate 10 and 15 minutes to the topic. This is why the corporate media here sucks. We don't get all the cool, juicy news from around the world unless we go to YouTube or something like that, or to sites that sometimes are in foreign languages. A lot of Americans don't even speak. They have to be fucking translated and stuff. You'd have some Spanish-speaking news page from Brazil. They'll cover it. But a lot of Americans don't speak Spanish, so it's going to be a problem for them. And even if they do, they might not even know what's going on. It's a big problem. So yeah, I wish the people of Brazil well. You need to clean house, so to speak. I think we have the same problem here. We have the same sort of burgeoning anti-establishment movements, the same sort of corrupt two-party duopoly and so forth. But that's a whole different realm of corruption there when you're getting that much wealth wiped out that quickly. That's about all. Peace out.